My mom made me stand guard while she slept with my brother's teachers to change his grades. When I saw her stirring white powder into his orange juice every morning, she twisted my arm and said, "You want him to fail? You want us to stay poor forever?" My mom worked 80 hours a week and we were still living inside a trailer home in the middle of a junkyard. So when my older brother Brad went into sophomore year, he didn't just turn 15, he turned into mom's way out. I still remember the way she used to look at his straight A's with tears in her eyes. "You're going to be a doctor. You're getting us out of here. Promise me," she'd always say. At first, mom's dedication seemed normal. During junior year, she quit her night job and transformed our living room into study central. For Brad's study groups, she'd make what we called fancy ramen, which was Mauritian noodles with green onions and sesame seeds. We all thought she was amazing. I never would have imagined what was really going on behind closed doors. It all started when my phone ran out of battery. Mom agreed to let me use hers for homework, when really I just wanted to play Subway Surfers. But as soon as I unlocked it, my stomach dropped, because sitting in her camera roll was a folder labeled grades, except it wasn't filled with report cards. Number it was flooded with photos of my mom posing in ways that made me sick. Photos no mother should be sending to anyone. They were all organized into subfolders with names like Mr. Ed Timothy, married, and Mr. Jim, single. But just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, it did, because that's when I read through her texts. Her method was clear. Lure the teachers in with her photos, and once their fun was over, she'd blackmail them to have Brad's grades changed. My hands were shaking so hard that the phone dropped, and as I bent over to pick it up, I heard my mom's footsteps come up behind me. "If you tell anyone, they'll take you away. And foster care is worse than anything you can imagine." The very next morning, she dragged me to school early. When I asked why, she just responded with, "Now that you know, you're going to help." I had no idea what she meant until we got to an empty classroom where she had a parent conference booked. My role was simple: stand guard outside, make sure no one came in while she gave Brad's teacher a little something something. Sometimes I'd hear muffled voices or furniture moving, and I'd squeeze my eyes shut so hard I saw stars. Once Mr. Jim rushed out with his shirt untucked. Mom followed behind him, adjusting her skirt and lipstick with this satisfied smile that made me want to throw up. But apparently this still wasn't enough for her, because a week later, she came home with master passwords and administrative access to change grades directly in the system. Her hands would shake with excitement as if she won the lottery. I had no idea where she got it from, but whenever I dared to ask about it, she'd say, "Your brother works so hard. I'm just helping to format things properly." I watched her research college application strategies until 3 in the morning, her appetite consisting of instant coffee and whatever pills she bought from the sleazy guy at the gas station. The next morning, my hands trembled as I watched her stir white powder into Brad's orange juice. "Vitamins," she'd tell him, "to help you focus." I opened my mouth to warn him, but just before I could say anything, Mom turned to me and mouthed the words, "foster care." So I was forced to sit there and watch as my brother drank poison. From there, Brad started getting headaches, and his hands would shake during dinner. But as his test scores kept going up, so did Mom's doses. I tried watering down his juice once when she wasn't looking, but she caught me and twisted my arm so hard I had bruises. "You want him to fail? You want us to stay poor forever?" she hissed in my ear. She'd measure out different amounts depending on what he had that day. More for practice tests, the most for actual exams. I knew she was playing with fire, but I never imagined how badly we'd all get burned until the morning of his SAT. I woke up to Mom screaming Brad's name. I ran to his room and found him unconscious on the floor with foam coming out of his mouth. His lips were blue and his chest barely moved. Mom stood frozen holding an empty med bottle with white powder residue. "Mom, what the F? Call 911. I screamed, but she just kept repeating, "He needs to take the test. We need this score." I grabbed her phone and dialed while she tried to wrestle it away from me. "Please help, my brother overdosed and he's not breathing right," I blurted into the phone mic. The operator stayed calm and talked me through checking his pulse while Mom collapsed beside him sobbing. Fuck, we came so fucking close. I ruined everything." The paramedics burst through our door and immediately started working on Brad. Mom tried to hide the med bottles, but it was too late. I already showed the EMTs. At the hospital, Brad flatlined twice. He was pronounced dead at 4:38 p.m. The official cause was heart failure from a DRG overdose. I didn't say a word, because I had spent my entire teenagehood wishing someone would put my mom in her place, but I never knew that that someone was going to be me. The police arrived within minutes of the paramedics. 2 detectives walked into our trailer while Mom sat in the corner, rocking back and forth. I wrapped myself in Brad's hoodie, the one he wore to every study session. It still smelled like him, like the cologne he saved up for months to buy. The detective who questioned me had kind eyes and spoke softly. She asked me to explain what happened, but every time I tried to form words, sobs took over. Mom screamed from across the room about how they were going to put me in foster care, how I'd ruined everything. The officers had to separate us. A child services worker showed up an hour later. She had gray hair pulled back in a bun and carried a worn leather bag. When she told me I needed to come with her, I begged for just 5 minutes to grab my sketchbook from my room. She nodded and followed me back to the trailer. Walking through our home felt surreal. Brad's orange juice glass still sat on the kitchen counter from that morning, half empty. I stared at it, remembering how many times I'd watched him drink from similar glasses, knowing what was in them. In my room, I grabbed my sketchbook and noticed Mom's old tablet charging on her dresser. The screen was still unlocked. My fingers moved on autopilot. I opened the cloud storage where everything backed up automatically. There they were, all the photos, organized in those sick folders. My hands shook as I took screenshot after screenshot. The child services worker called from the living room that we needed to leave. I slipped the tablet into my backpack. Outside, I handed the tablet to the detective. She looked confused until I whispered about the cloud backups. Her expression changed immediately. She pulled out an evidence bag and carefully placed the tablet inside. The emergency foster home reeked of cigarettes and cat litter. My foster parents, an older couple named Bill and Sharon, barely looked up when I arrived. Sharon showed me to a small bedroom with peeling matching wallpaper and a twin bed that creaked when I sat down. Through the thin walls, I heard her tell Bill it was another substance case. She didn't know I could hear everything. Sleep wouldn't come that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Brad's blue lips, the foam around his mouth, his chest barely moving. When morning arrived, Sharon called us down for breakfast. She poured orange juice for all the foster kids. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. 3 days passed before the detective called. Mom was refusing to cooperate without seeing me. The detective said I could choose whether to visit her or not. Part of me never wanted to see her again, but another part needed to face her, needed her to know that I knew everything. The county jail visiting room had thick glass partitions and phones on each side. Mom looked smaller in her orange jumpsuit. Dark circles rimmed her eyes. When she saw me, she pressed both hands against the glass. I picked up the phone. She started crying immediately, begging me to tell them I lied, that she was a good mother, that Brad's death was an accident. The words built up inside me like pressure in a shaken soda bottle. Finally, I couldn't hold them back. You called him. Mom's fist slammed against the glass so hard that a guard started moving toward us. Her eyes shifted between rage and tears, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Then, like flipping a switch, her expression softened. They'll split us up forever, she whispered. You'll age out of foster care alone. Brad wouldn't want that. He'd want us together. I dropped the phone and ran. In the parking lot, my phone buzzed. A text from Jake, Brad's best friend. Mom says confused. She didn't do it right. My stomach sank. Jake's mom had been in one of Brad's study groups. If Mom was already spreading her version of events, how many people would believe her over me? My phone showed 3 missed calls from other study group parents. 2 days later, the foster placement coordinator arrived with news. My Aunt Helen from 2 towns over wanted temporary custody. Mom's sister, who I hadn't seen since I was 8. The coordinator said family placement was always preferred. Aunt Helen's house felt like a shrine to everyone but me. Photos of Mom and Brad covered every surface. Brad at science fairs, Brad with academic awards, Mom and Brad at his sophomore honor roll ceremony. Not a single photo included me. Helen spent the first hour rearranging Brad's memorial items on the mantle, muttering about how she always said Mom pushed too hard. 2 weeks crawled by before I started at the new school. The guidance counselor met with me privately, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. She knew about my situation and said I could take all the time I needed. Walking through the hallways, I caught fragments of whispers. Everyone already knew. That evening, Helen brought up Mom's commissary account. I wonder what's really going through Helen's mind when she's arranging all those photos of Brad and Mom, but none of the narrator. She takes in her niece after this tragedy, but her house tells a different story about who matters to her. She needed money for basic supplies. She's still my sister, Helen said. Still your mother. When I refused, Helen's face hardened. The warm aunt act cracked, revealing something colder underneath. The next morning, I discovered Jake's mom had created a Facebook page called Support for Linda. The post described a tragic accident and a grieving mother who'd lost everything. Hundreds of shares and comments poured in. People who didn't know us were donating to Mom's legal fund. The detective called with an update. Mom had hired a lawyer who was claiming her confession was coerced, that she was in shock when she spoke to police. They needed my testimony for the grand jury. The prosecutor would have a public defender while Mom had a hired attorney. My Instagram filled with messages. Some offered support, but others accused me of lying. Mom loved Brad, why would she hurt him or lying? Appeared over and over. I stopped checking social media. One afternoon, I overheard Helen on a call in the kitchen. She was talking to someone about Mom's case. Maybe she was confused, Helen said. Trauma does things to memory. The girl's always been dramatic. My own aunt was choosing blood over truth. School became unbearable. In the bathroom, I heard girls gossiping about the psycho family where the mom called her brother for grades. I stopped eating lunch in the cafeteria, finding empty classrooms or hiding in the library instead. The prosecutor called with bad news. Mom's teacher victims were staying silent. Mr. Peterson had already transferred schools. Others had lawyered up. Without their testimony, proving the full extent of Mom's schemes would be harder. After school one day, Marcy cornered me by the bike racks. Brad's girlfriend looked exhausted, her eyes red from crying, but her words cut deep. She insisted Brad was getting better grades, that Mom was just helping him succeed. She accused me of jealousy, of wanting to destroy the family because Brad was the favorite. I rolled up my sleeve, showing her the bruises Mom left when she caught me watering down Brad's juice. They'd faded to yellow and green, but were still visible. Marcy's face changed, conflict flickering in her eyes, but she still walked away. Helen suggested family therapy to work through these accusations. The therapist she found specialized in false memories and recovered memory syndrome. When I looked him up, I discovered Mom's lawyer had recommended him. I refused to go. Helen's response was swift. I can't house someone so destructive, she said. Foster care by Friday, or you recant your story. Mom's lawyer filed a motion that same afternoon. The court documents claimed I had a documented history of attention-seeking behavior, using screenshots from my old Instagram where I'd posted my artwork with captions about feeling invisible. My creativity became ammunition against me. I called the prosecutor from a school bathroom stall, my voice echoing off the tiles. I explained about the screenshots from Mom's cloud storage. The prosecutor's excitement was palpable as she instructed me to email everything immediately. My hands trembled as I forwarded the files from my phone. The screenshots showed organized folders with teacher names, but the actual photos had been deleted. The folder structure remained like a skeleton of evidence. It proved something existed, but not what. The prosecutor called it helpful, but not the smoking GN we needed. Mom had known to delete the photos before her arrest, leaving just enough doubt for her lawyer to exploit. Marcy's social media became a weapon against me. She posted a throwback photo of Brad at his academic awards ceremony with Mom beaming beside him. The caption read about how hard Mom tried to help Brad succeed, complete with heart emojis. Within 2 hours, it had 847 likes. Comments poured in about what a dedicated mother she'd been. The local news picked up the story. The headline made my stomach turn. Mother accused by daughter in son's substance death. The article presented both sides equally, as if Mom's version held the same weight as the truth. The comments section transformed into a battlefield where strangers prosecutors debated our family tragedy. Mom's lawyer moved fast. He subpoenaed my medical records and discovered I'd been prescribed anxiety medication after Dad left when I was 12. The prescription had expired years ago, but that detail got buried. Now I wasn't just a grieving sister. I was a mentally unstable teenager with a history. The prosecutor prepared me for what was coming. She explained how Mom's lawyer would twist everything, claiming I blamed Mom for Dad's abandonment and invented this story for revenge. The truth would be weaponized against me. Every genuine emotion would become evidence of instability. Helen's patience expired. When I refused to recant my story, she packed my belongings while I was at school. I returned to find 2 garbage bags of clothes on the porch. The foster care coordinator picked me up an hour later, driving me to a group home 40 minutes from the courthouse. The group home housed 8 other teenagers. My roommate Googled my case within hours of my arrival. By dinner, everyone knew. Whispers followed me through the common areas. Some residents had survived their own family traumas and offered quiet support. Others saw me as the girl who betrayed her mother. Mom's commissary account received regular deposits from supporters. Other inmates began leaving voicemails on the group home's phone, their messages dripping with judgment. They spoke about how my mom talked about me constantly, how she loved me despite everything. The manipulation reached me even through concrete walls. One evening, while doing homework in the library, I remembered something crucial. Brad always used my birthday as his password for everything, 0318. His devices might have synced to cloud storage. I logged into his account from a library computer and found his phone's automatic backups. His last essay draft was there, showing Mom's extensive editing history. The metadata revealed she'd written 90% of it, with timestamps proving she worked on it while Brad slept. The prosecutor said it demonstrated academic fraud, but didn't prove murder. Still, it was another piece of evidence. The group home's 10 p.m. curfew created constant anxiety. Court preparation meetings ended at 9:30, leaving me racing back through dark streets. The stress manifested physically. My hands shook constantly, and sleep became elusive. Other residents noticed my deterioration but kept their distance. Jake's mom organized a meal train for poor Linda. She posted photos of her jail visits, describing Mom as a grieving mother who'd lost both children. The community rallied behind the comfortable lie rather than facing the uncomfortable truth. Brad's friends chose to preserve their image of the devoted mother. Mom's interview request with local news was accepted. The announcement sent dread coursing through me. She'd always known how to play victim, how to make her tears seem genuine. The interview would air during prime time, reaching thousands who'd form opinions based on her performance. The interview exceeded my worst fears. Mom cried about losing both children, painting me as a troubled teenager who'd always craved the attention Brad received. She spoke of my anxiety medication, my social media posts about feeling invisible, creating a narrative where I was the unstable one. The interviewer nodded sympathetically throughout. The prosecutor called an emergency meeting. Public opinion mattered more than anyone wanted to admit. Potential jurors were watching this coverage, forming opinions. We needed the teachers to testify, to break their silence. Without them, it became my word against Mom's carefully crafted image. Mrs. Peterson reached out through the prosecutor's office. She knew what Mom had done to her husband, but explained that testifying would destroy what remained of her family. Her pain was evident in every word. She'd become another victim of Mom's schemes, caught between justice and protecting her children from further trauma. A breakthrough came when the tech team finally unlocked Brad's phone. His text messages revealed months of complaints about feeling sick. He'd told friends about constant nausea, shaking hands, difficulty concentrating. Mom's responses always pushed him to power through, insisting success required sacrifice. One particular text to Marcy stood out. Brad had written about Mom's strange behavior around his vitamins, how she insisted on watching him take them. He'd found it odd, but trusted her. Marcy broke down when shown the message. She admitted she'd dismissed his concerns as dramatic complaining. Marcy agreed to testify about Brad's health complaints. She sat in the prosecutor's office, tears streaming as she recounted conversations she'd ignored. Her guilt was palpable. She'd thought he was being weak, never imagining his own mother was poisoning him. She kept repeating how she should have listened. Mom's lawyer attacked the text messages as proving nothing. He argued they showed a concerned mother ensuring her son took legitimate vitamins. Without proof of what the pills contained, the text became circumstantial evidence. The system's requirement for concrete proof protected those who knew how to hide their crimes. I remembered the gas station where Mom bought her pills. The owner knew her as a regular customer who always paid cash. She'd bought energy pills, he said, assuming she worked night shifts. The security footage had been recycled after 30 days, but he'd kept paper receipts for tax purposes. The timestamps on those receipts matched Brad's documented bad days. Every test, every important assignment correlated with a purchase. The prosecutor called it circumstantial but helpful. Pattern evidence that painted a picture even if it couldn't prove the pill's contents. Another small victory in an uphill battle. Helen's sudden shift from caring aunt to someone threatening foster care raises questions about her real motives here. Why is she so eager to silence her niece instead of seeking the truth about Brad's death? Mom changed tactics, filing a request for me to visit. She claimed to have important information about Brad's real father. I recognized the manipulation but went anyway, needing to face her newest lie. The visiting room felt smaller each time, the glass between us both a barrier and a protection. She spun a tale about Brad's biological father threatening to take him away if he didn't get into medical school. She painted herself as desperate, driven by maternal fear rather than selfish ambition. Her performance was convincing, tears at the right moments, voice breaking with emotion. Almost believable. Later at the library, I researched Brad's biological father. The obituary appeared immediately. Car accident when Brad was 3. Mom had forgotten her own lies, creating a threat from a dead man. I screenshotted everything, adding it to my growing folder of evidence. During our next visit, I showed Mom the obituary on my phone. Her face cycled through emotions, confusion, recognition, then rage. The mask slipped completely as she snarled about how I'd rather see her dead than admit my jealousy. The guard moved closer as her voice rose. Back at the group home, home, my roommate's curiosity about my case turned cruel. She shared details during dinner, turning my tragedy into entertainment. Whispers and stares followed me everywhere. The few supportive residents advised me to keep my head down, to survive until the trial ended. Helen called the group home, crying about how Mom was right about my jealousy. She begged me to come home, to tell the truth. Her version of truth meant accepting Mom's lies. Even family chose the comfortable fiction over the difficult reality. Blood loyalty trumped justice in her world. Mr. Peterson's wife filed for divorce after his affair with Mom surfaced. Their daughter Emma, who attended my new school, stopped acknowledging my existence. Another family destroyed by Mom's schemes. The ripple effects spread wider than anyone anticipated. Emma's social media post went viral in our school community. She wrote about how certain people had destroyed her family, how her parents' divorce was my fault for speaking up. Hundreds of sympathetic responses poured in. I became the villain in her story, the one who'd revealed what should have stayed hidden. I wrote Emma an apology letter during study hall, trying to explain. The words felt hollow. How could I apologize for telling the truth? I tore it up, realizing she needed someone to blame and I was the easiest target. Her pain was real, even if her anger was misdirected. The guidance counselor suggested homeschooling. The environment had become too difficult for everyone, she explained. My presence disrupted the peace, reminded people of uncomfortable truths. They wanted me gone not because I'd done wrong, but because I'd refused to stay silent. The grand jury date arrived faster than expected. The prosecutor warned me about Mom's lawyer's tactics. He'd attack my credibility, my mental health, my motivations. I needed to stay calm, stick to facts, resist emotional manipulation. Easier said than done when facing the woman who'd called my brother. While searching Brad's cloud storage, I discovered a voice memo from his phone. His own voice, tired and confused, talking to himself about Mom's strange behavior with the pills. He'd trusted her despite his concerns. Hearing his voice again broke something inside me. Brad's own words from beyond the grave. Mom's lawyer immediately filed a motion to exclude the audio. He claimed no proof existed that it hadn't been edited, that the chain of custody was compromised. The legal system's technicalities threatened to silence Brad's voice just as Mom had silenced him forever. Truth buried under procedure. The stress manifested in destructive ways. I started cutting, shallow marks on my arms hidden under long sleeves. The physical pain provided temporary relief from the emotional agony. When the house mother discovered me, mandatory psychiatric hold protocols kicked in, 72 hours that threatened to derail my testimony timeline. The psychiatrist cleared me after 3 days, but her notes became another weapon for Mom's lawyer. My mental health struggles, documented officially, would be used to discredit me. Every moment of weakness, every cry for help transformed into evidence of instability. The system meant to protect became another obstacle. I visited Brad's grave alone, speaking to the headstone about broken promises. I'd promised to protect him and failed. Now I was becoming what Mom said I was. Unstable, attention-seeking, destructive. The guilt felt heavier than the granite marker. I apologized for not saving him, for letting Mom win even after his death. The prosecutor's assistant quit, citing media attention affecting her children. Mom's supporters had found her kids' school, spreading their version of events. Another casualty in Mom's war against truth. Her replacement seemed less invested, going through motions rather than fighting for justice. I started recording every interaction, using my phone to document conversations. Helen's admission that Mom asked her to take me in specifically to control the narrative became crucial evidence. Helen discovered the recording and posted about her disturbed niece, secretly recording family. Every small victory twisted into another loss. Mom's new cellmate, a pregnant teenager, became her latest project. Mom positioned herself as the protective maternal figure, earning goodwill from other inmates' families. Stories spread about her kindness, her tragedy of losing both children. She cultivated sympathy even behind bars, playing the long game. The final witness list devastated our case. Mr. Peterson refused to testify, taking the fifth. 3 other teachers followed suit. The wall of silence protected the guilty while abandoning the victims. Their careers mattered more than justice for Brad. Mom's crimes would remain partially hidden. Brad's memorial fund, managed by Jake's mom, faced no legal restrictions. The money meant to honor Brad's memory now funded Mom's defense. I couldn't stop it. Couldn't protect even his legacy from her manipulation. She consumed everything, even grief meant for him. The local teachers union advised members against commenting on the case. Official neutrality that effectively supported Mom. The institution meant to protect students chose self-preservation. Brad had been failed by everyone meant to safeguard him, and now the system failed him again in death. The judge ruled I needed a competency evaluation before testifying. Another delay disguised as protection. The system treated me like a problem to be managed rather than a witness to murder. Adult professionals decided what was best while ignoring what was right. Brad's voice grew fainter with each legal maneuver. Then Mrs. Chen reached out privately. Brad's favorite teacher had noticed bruises, exhaustion, Mom's aggressive conference demands. She'd stayed silent then, but couldn't anymore. Her guilt over not reporting suspicions drove her to testify. An unexpected ally emerged from institutional silence. Mrs. Chen's deposition detailed Brad's physical deterioration, his shaking hands during tests, his exhaustion. She described Mom's demands for grade changes, the implicit threats behind her requests. Mom's lawyer attacked her credibility, suggesting she was rewriting history for a disturbed child, but Mrs. Chen held firm. Mom's lawyer attacked Mrs. Chen during cross-examination, painting her as someone trying to rewrite history for a disturbed child. But Mrs. Chen remained steady, describing specific incidents where Brad's hands shook so badly he couldn't hold a pencil. She explained how Mom demanded conference after conference, always pushing for higher grades despite Brad's obvious exhaustion. The digital forensics team made another discovery in Mom's email account. Attachments showed she'd received stolen tests from someone with administrative access to the principal's computer. The timestamps proved Brad had never taken the real exams. Mom had the answers days before. My brother's perfect scores were built on theft, and lies. The evidence mounted, but Mom's lawyer kept arguing it proved desperation, not murder. A mother trying to help her son succeed through questionable means wasn't the same as intentional poisoning. The distinction felt meaningless when Brad was dead, but legal technicalities created space for doubt. I realized Mom might get a lighter sentence than she deserved. The prosecutor explained we'd likely see convictions for fraud and involuntary manslaughter rather than murder. Justice wouldn't look like what I'd imagined. Brad would get some vindication, but Mom would serve maybe 7 years instead of life. The prosecutor helped me accept this reality during our final preparation meeting. She explained how the system worked, how we took what we could get. Mom would still face consequences. Brad's death wouldn't go unpunished. It wasn't perfect justice, but it was something. I spent hours writing my victim impact statement. Every word felt insufficient to capture Brad's lost potential. The brother who'd never become a doctor, never escaped the trailer park through his own merit. The statement couldn't bring him back, but it could ensure the court understood exactly what Mom had stolen from us. Mom's commissary account showed regular activity. She'd been buying legal research books, studying case law. Even behind bars, she was planning her appeals strategy. The fight wouldn't end with a verdict. She'd keep trying to rewrite history, to make herself the victim. The trial date finally arrived. I wore Brad's hoodie for strength, the same one from that terrible morning. The courtroom filled with community members, some supporting Mom, others there for Brad. The division was visible in the seating arrangements, two sides of a tragedy that had split our town. Mom entered in a conservative dress, her hair neatly styled. She'd lost weight, making her look fragile and sympathetic. Brad's real father being dead for years while Mom spins stories about him threatening custody makes me wonder how many other lies she's told that nobody's checked. She's creating ghosts to justify her actions, but why did she think nobody would look up something so easy to verify? Her lawyer had coached her well. She kept dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, playing the grieving mother perfectly. From the defendant's table, she mouthed words at me that looked like, "I love you." Opening statements set the tone. The prosecutor painted a picture of obsession and control, a mother who'd poisoned her son in pursuit of academic success. The defense countered with a loving parent who'd made mistakes while trying to lift her family from poverty. They made Mom sound almost noble. My testimony lasted 3 hours. I detailed everything: the photos, the blackmail, the forced accomplice role, watching Brad drink poison juice. The prosecutor guided me through each piece of evidence while Mom's tears flowed freely. Some jurors watched her sympathetically, while others studied my face for signs of deception. Cross-examination felt like being flayed alive. Mom's lawyer brought up my anxiety medication, my foster care placements, my social media posts about feeling invisible. He painted me as an attention-seeking teenager who'd always resented Brad's success. When he suggested I'd blamed Mom for Dad's abandonment, I had to grip the witness stand to stay calm. The lawyer pressed harder, asking if it was true that I'd never actually seen Mom put anything harmful in Brad's drinks. Technically accurate. I'd seen white powder but couldn't prove what it was. He twisted every truth into doubt, every fact into speculation, but I held firm, repeating what I knew to be true. Marcy's testimony helped rebuild our case. She described Brad's health complaints in detail, how he'd mentioned Mom's strange behavior with vitamins. She admitted dismissing his concerns as dramatics. Her tears were genuine as she explained how she'd failed to listen when it mattered. Jake's mom shifted uncomfortably in the gallery. The judge ordered expert testimony about the toxicology results. The medical examiner explained how the stimulant levels in Brad's system were lethal, built up over months of regular doses. The defense argued these could have been from energy drinks or study aids Brad took himself, but the pattern of escalating doses told a different story. More evidence emerged from Mom's jail cell. Guards had found notebooks where she'd detailed plans for Brad's future, complete with medication schedules. She'd documented her own crimes, believing she was creating a success roadmap. The prosecution entered these as evidence while Mom's composure finally cracked. The notebooks revealed Mom's mindset clearly. She genuinely believed the pills were helping Brad reach his potential. Her delusion and criminality intertwined so completely that she'd seen poisoning her son as an act of love, evil wearing the mask of maternal devotion. The jury studied the pages with disturbed fascination. Against her lawyer's advice, Mom took a stand. She started controlled, claiming I'd always been jealous of Brad, that he was thriving before his death. She insisted the pills were store-bought vitamins, that she'd only wanted to help him focus. Her performance might have worked if she'd stopped there, but the prosecutor knew exactly which buttons to push. She presented the receipts, the timestamps, Brad's own texts about feeling sick. Mom's careful facade crumbled piece by piece. When confronted with the stolen test evidence, she finally exploded. Her real face showed through the mask. Mom screamed about saving Brad from poverty, about sacrificing everything for his future. She ranted about ungrateful children who didn't understand what she'd endured. The jury watched her transform from grieving mother to the obsessive woman who'd called her son. Her lawyer tried to quiet her, but she was beyond control. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. I sat in the hallway wearing Brad's hoodie, surrounded by the prosecutor's team. When they called us back, Mom stood rigid at the defendant's table. The foreman read the verdicts: guilty of involuntary manslaughter, guilty of fraud, guilty of child endangerment, not guilty of second-degree murder. Partial justice, just as the prosecutor had predicted. Mom's face cycled through emotions: relief at avoiding the murder conviction, rage at being found guilty at all. She screamed about appeals as the bailiffs prepared to take her away. The community remained divided even as the gavel fell. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. The judge considered Mom's lack of prior record and her obvious mental health issues. 15 years with possibility of parole in 7. Mom wailed about the injustice while Brad's friends sat stone-faced. It wasn't enough time for taking a life, but it was something. The aftermath rippled through our town. Some people still believed Mom had been trying to help. Others quietly apologized for doubting me. The Facebook support page stayed active, though with fewer posts. Our tragedy became local history, a cautionary tale told in whispers. The foster care system moved me again, this time to an experienced experienced family who specialized in trauma cases. They understood my need for space, my difficulty trusting adults. Their house felt different. No photos of Mom or Brad to avoid, no relatives choosing blood over truth, just quiet support while I figured out what came next. Mrs. Chen visited weekly, bringing art supplies and stories about Brad from before everything went wrong. She became the adult presence I needed, someone who'd known my brother, who carried guilt about not intervening sooner. We'd work on sketches while she shared memories of Brad's genuine brilliance, the potential loss to Mom's twisted love. The prosecutor's office offered me an internship when I turned 18. They wanted me to help other young witnesses navigate the system. I'd learned too much about how justice really worked, how truth could be twisted by procedure. Maybe I could help other kids avoid some of the obstacles I'd faced. I visited Brad's grave every week, updating him on my new life. I'd tell him about my art classes, about the other foster kids who'd become like siblings, about how Mrs. Chen was teaching me to separate his memory from Mom's crimes, about accepting that some people would always believe Mom's version of events. 1 year later, I sat at a desk in the prosecutor's office, preparing a teenage witness for testimony. Her hands shook like mine once had. I showed her Brad's photo on my desk, next to my own artwork. I explained how truth sometimes looked different from justice, how partial victories still mattered. Mom's appeal was denied. She'd serve at least 7 years before parole hearings began. I'd be 23 then, hopefully through college, building a life she couldn't poison. Brad would have been 25, maybe in medical school through his own merit. Instead, his photo watched over my desk as I helped other children escape their own versions of Mom's obsessive love. Thanks for sticking around while I puzzled through all this with you guys. See you next time.